Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, episode number 84. In this episode, you'll be hearing from Sarah Meyer. Sarah is a blogger and she's working to destigmatize mental health and motherhood and educate women that taking care of yourself is how you can best care for your family. So Sarah and we had a lot of great discussions. We talked about postpartum depression, anxiety, mental health, fertility issues, and about shame and guilt. Okay, so we will get to the episode in a moment, but I just wanted to touch on a few things first. So, were you aware that there's an Ordinary to Badass Facebook group? I would love for you to join the O2B Facebook group. It's Ordinary to Badass Facebook group, but I call it O2B for short, which, if you've been a listener here, you probably already know that. So yeah, join the Ordinary to Badass Facebook group so we can continue this conversation. There's so many great nuggets and value bombs that our guests are giving us, but it would be cool if we could dive into it a little bit further. Yeah? So join the Ordinary to Badass Facebook group today. That way we can do a deep dive into some of these conversations, talk about it a little bit more. So I'd love for you to join that today. And then I just got to tell you, I just finished the first edit of my book, which I'm so stinking excited for. I can't wait to put it out into the world, answer any budgeting questions that you might have. That is what my book is going to be about. So if you have any dying questions about personal finance or budgeting, send me a DM on Instagram at Ordinary to Badass. I want to make sure that it gets in the book. If there's questions that you have, I just want to make sure that I'm addressing them. So super excited. I would definitely love to hear your questions at Ordinary to Badass on Instagram. And with that, let's get to the episode already. Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or you're badass, I'm glad you're here. Today's guest is Sarah Meyer. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show. Excited to have you.
Yay!
So, Sarah, before we go any further, I've got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
Okay, so I have actually thought about this a lot. And as I've been thinking about it, it's really only the last few years that I would have told you, or that I am a badass, because before that, I really struggled with a lot of like self-esteem and self-worth, issues with self-worth. And it's really been through the healing journey in the last year or so that I've really found my badassery, if you will, and now know that I'm capable of anything that I put my mind to.
Awesome. So what was it through the healing journey that kind of brought out your badassness?
Kind of just like I just said, like I had just had such low self-esteem and feeling of worth that I never felt like anything happened because I was actually worth it. It just happened because it happened to happen. And as I became more comfortable and happy with who I was, I realized the power that's within my body, that I can do whatever I set my mind to, and that I have the capability to do whatever my dreams are and more. And so it's just that regaining of my identity and my purpose.
Was there a specific incident that triggered that?
I would say it started when I finally realized I struggled with a lot of depression and anxiety after having children. And it wasn't until I realized through counseling that I had completely lost my identity, because I had associated all of my goals, all my dreams, all my direction with my job, being a physical therapist. And so when my husband and I made the decision for me to stay home, I became completely lost. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I never really had wanted to be a stay-at-home mom until I had children. Um, so when I was in counseling, the counselor said, asked me like, how would you identify yourself? And I didn't know. Like I had no idea. So it really took a lot of self-reflection to finally realize that I'm founded in my beliefs, in my faith, and that is what drives me and leads me. So it was kind of just that rediscovery of going back to the basics of who I was that finally pushed me forward to seeing my true capability and my ability to be a full badass.
I love that. So I want to know a little bit more about you. Can you tell us a little bit about your bio, who you are, and kind of where you came from?
Yeah. So I was a homeschool kid. I was one of those K through 12. So I have a pretty sheltered upbringing. My parents joined a gym when I was 15 to get us a little bit more of like extracurricular activity. And I've developed a passion for all things like exercise and fitness. And that kind of drove me into the field of physical therapy because I loved the idea of helping people who were injured get back to being active again. So I graduated with my doctorate in 2011 from Washington University in School of Medicine in St. Louis, and started working. And I loved what I did. I was good at what I did. And then we decided to start a family. So in 2011, after some issues with infertility, we had our first son, and then we had another, and then another, and then a daughter. And then we had our surprise son in 2018. So I had 4 children in 4.5 years. Which is as crazy as it sounds. It's very, very busy all the time. But as a part of that journey, I started having issues with anxiety after my first son. And it continued to progress until after my third child, my daughter, I ended up with severe postpartum depression, but didn't know it. All I knew was that I was miserable. I couldn't function. I didn't want to do anything. My marriage was struggling because we couldn't talk without fighting. And it took a legitimate like breakdown on the side of the road for me to realize that something was wrong. I was running and I love running. So crying after doing something that you love just really doesn't make sense. And so it took that like trigger to finally realize that something was wrong and I needed help. So I went to the doctor and started on medication. But I spent really the next 3 years in a cycle of shame and disappointment with myself, not understanding like why I had to have help, that I couldn't control this myself. And really, the second I thought I felt better as far as my depression and anxiety would go, I would stop taking my medication and then I would cycle back down again. And I'd get so depressed where I wasn't functioning. And then I'd start back on my medication. So it really took like 3 years of cycling through that shame and that disappointment in myself to finally realize how ridiculous that was. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, who cares if I need medication, if I need to do some counseling? That it doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter. So after being depressed, miserable, and just lonely, Christmas of 2019, I decided that it was enough. Like, enough was enough. So I started out 2020 with the intent of completely healing and walking through this depression and anxiety for the last time and conquering it. So I started 2020 with like just a focused mindset, started personal counseling, was taking medication consistently and doing really, really well. And then the pandemic hit. And I was like petrified that I would go back to where I was because I knew how miserable that was and how much better I was feeling finally after doing all of that. And what I actually found in that time, because we had a lot of time for self-reflection, was just this burning passion and desire to start helping women who have similar stories and issues. the more I started talking about what I had gone through, the more women who were like, oh, yeah, I've struggled with that, or I've had similar problems. And I was just like, why is no one talking about these things? Like, if we're all depressed and anxious, why aren't we like talking and encouraging one another? So it was at that point that I decided to form my company, Embrace, Live, Thrive. So I spent the second half of 2020 planning, organizing, praying over this company, and launched right at the end of December. And so my mission is to destigmatize mental health and educate mothers um, through foundations of self-care, of how to care for themselves. And it's really my mission to just speak the hard conversations, inspire women that it's okay to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of humanity. And we are all human. And it's okay to need help sometimes. And so, really, that's kind of just my background, where I'm from, and what has kind of inspired and led me to start down this part of my journey.
Oh my gosh, so good. I love hearing your story. There's so many nuggets in there that I want to dive deeper into because
Yeah.
it sounds like you've had such a journey and really badass moments. And,
Yeah.
sometimes it's those struggle moments, like the things that are like, oh my gosh, like this is misery or this is horrible. But
Yeah.
then you can use that to kind of push you to your badassery. So I love that.
Yeah.
So let's go back to when you were getting your doctorate's degree. What led you to get your doctorate's degree, and what was that process like of going to school to get that degree?
So that I watched my dad do a job that he hated for over 30 years because that's what he needed to do to take care of our family. And so when I was looking for my own path and my own career choice, because it was never if I was going to go to college, it was what I was going to go to college for. Like that was just always like an assumption in my house, or just an understanding. So when I began to look at career paths, I was like, I don't care what it is or how long it takes me. I want to do something that I can be passionate about and love doing for a lifetime. So I always, from like I said, the time I was 15, I always knew I enjoyed things that were fitness. I enjoyed exercise. I enjoyed just being in general, being active. And so when I went to tour my first college, they have all the booths set up of all the things and stuff like that. And that's actually how I was drawn to athletic training, which is my undergraduate. So that is basically just a degree that's specific towards training athletes and working with athletes in sports teams and things like that. So I found that then and just like fell in love with it. But I'd already had like an inkling that physical therapy was where I wanted to go because of that love of activity. My mom had a frozen shoulder when she was, I don't know, 30s, 40s, somewhere in there. And so I went to physical therapy with her and watched how they took her through exercise and activity, took her from being in immense amounts of pain to be able to use her arm again. And I was just like awed by that. So that was kind of where I got inspired as far as physical therapy goes. So I went to the school knowing I wanted to do the physical therapy program, but that's a graduate level degree. So you have to have an undergraduate first. And so that's kind of just how I got drawn to athletic training, and then knew that I wanted to do the physical therapy program. And that was intense.
Yeah, I bet. And that kind of hits on what I was going to ask next was that process easy? Did you ever have doubts, like as you were going through it, if you'd be able to make it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I did my undergraduate in athletic training, and we would have like twice a year, we'd have a review with the director of the program to like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And almost every meeting I would get dinged for my self-confidence and just being able to like be who I needed to be and interact with the people. And so that was always discouraging, when you think you're doing better and then you're not.
Right.
So I applied to Wash U we were living in Bolivar, Missouri, which is about 3.5 hours from St. Louis. But my husband is originally from St. Louis and just moved down there because I was there. So he wanted to come home as soon as possible. So I looked to transfer for my graduate program to one of the 3 schools in the St. Louis area that does physical therapy. And I actually got waitlisted to 2 of the 3 programs. So originally I wasn't even accepted into WashU, which was hard. Like, because that was our dream, was to come home. So, we just kind of like, if it happens, it happens, but like, we've got to keep moving on. So I think it was in the spring of 2010, maybe the fall, whenever, that I found out that I was accepted into the program. And I was like ecstatic. I was like, oh, this is amazing. But there always was, especially that first year or so, there was just this sense of, well, am I really good enough because I was waitlisted, like to actually be here? Like, all these other people are really smart. Like, do I really deserve to be here? But as I went through the program and just fell in love with what I was doing and what I was learning, that slowly kind of went away, to where by the time I graduated in 2011, I was just ecstatic. I loved what I did, and I knew I was good at what I did.
Yeah. What did you learn about confidence through that process? Like, I'm sure when they gave you the feedback, like you said, it was kind of hard, but
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself and confidence?
So I learned that I'm a people person and that I do very well with hands-on activities. So as I could see myself building skills and building things that I knew that I could do, that just helped my self-confidence continue to grow and grow.
Yeah, and probably like most things, repetition. It's like
Yes.
we all suck at confidence when we start something new, but then like the more you do it and get more reps in, it's like the more comfortable you become with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree.
So you talked about running a little bit, and I'm with you. I have a love-hate relationship with running. I love like the runner's high, like after you're done running, and how much it like completely clears your brain.
Absolutely.
However, it's like I don't necessarily love running itself. I just like the runner's effect.
How you feel afterwards.
Yes. But how has running helped you or impacted your life?
Oh my gosh. Probably for me, it's one of the biggest stress relieves. Because I can go out. It's one of my favorite places to just decompress and just let my mind roam. So I love the exercise. I love how it makes my body feel while I'm doing it, my muscles stretching. But as much of that, it's just this great place of decompression for me. If I'm stressed, if I'm tired, if I'm anxious, I can go for a run and I can just feel all of it like melting off of me, because I enjoy it. But I have to say, if you're not a runner and you don't enjoy it, don't do it. But that's what it gives for me, is just that sense of freeness, to where I don't have to focus on anything that's going on. I can just focus on my breathing and let my mind roam and process.
Yes. So I have to ask you, see if this is true for you. When I have ran, when I run over 2 or 3 miles, it just kind of all evens out. But prior to becoming a runner, like I never ran over 2 or 3 miles, and I was always like, oh, this is death. But like you just kind of get into a rhythm or a consistency, or your breathing kind of catches up. Is that true for you?
Oh yeah. So my sister is even a more intense runner than I am. And she always says that the first 2 miles are a liar.
Yes.
Yeah, don't believe how you feel those first 2 miles, because it's a complete lie. You have to kind of, if you're going for the endurance, you have to kind of hang in there. And after your body really like warms up and clicks over into that next phase, it'll even out and it'll get more rhythmic.
Yes.
I don't want to say easier, because it depends on your conditioning, but it gets more rhythmic and more natural.
Yes. So to beers, if you are not a runner and you haven't really run over 3 miles, just give it a try a couple times.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I think that you could be, or you might like it more than you think you do.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So you talked a little bit about your journey trying to get pregnant and having fertility issues. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you went through?
Yeah. So being a young gung-ho person that had pretty much who's very goal oriented, and like I set this goal, I crush it, and then I move on. When we made the decision to start trying for a family, um, and then we didn't, it was very depressing, like, so, you would try and then you take all the tests and all of them are negative and then you're crushed. And so we were fortunate in the sense that we only spent just over a year trying without success. And then we were put on Clomid, which is one of the first lines of defense as far as fertility goes. And we were able to have success with that. So we didn't have success the first round. It took the second round of Clomid for us to have success. And it brought so much comfort, because you get to that phase where you're ready for a child, and the fact that you can't even start is just very depressing and very just takes the wind out of your sails almost every day.
Yeah. What would you say to the mom who's going through that right now? Or the woman who's going through that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. It takes just a lot of patience, which is it's so easy to say on the other side of having a child. Patience, trying to really do some self-reflection to let some of that stress go, because adding stress to your body only makes fertility worse. And that's why a lot of people who, tried, can't have babies, go to adopt and then have a baby. It's, kind of that thing where you take all that stress off yourself and finally you're able to conceive. So really just trying to take that step back, focus on breathing, mindfulness, positive thinking. Those are what going to kind of help you decrease some of the stress in the moment. But yeah, I mean, it's a difficult season for sure. That waiting.
Yeah, I bet. Was there any resources that you used to help you de-stress or figure out what to do to be more mindful?
At that time, before kids, we had a whole lot of time to go to the gym.
Nice.
So my husband and I are big racquetball players. So I would do a lot of running. I actually, right before we started trying, I had done a triathlon. So I've been, swimming, running, biking, all of those things, playing racquetball. So a lot of the things that I did as far as de-stress were physical activity for me at the time. That was the only thing I knew as a stress relief. I know a lot more now. But at the time, that's all I needed because I could do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, sorry, my mind just completely went blank, but
yeah.
So now fast forward, take us to having your first child. And when was it that you first realized that you were that it was affecting you, that you were having postpartum depression or just some sort of depression and didn't know how to get out of it?
Yeah. So we had our first son in 2014, which was such a blessing. And it was almost instantly after having him, I had completely planned on going back to work full time, even before I had him. I was like, I'm going to have this kid. I'm going straight back to work. I've got a career. I've got a direction. I know what I want to do. And then we had him, and it became a joint decision between my husband and I that I would step back from my career for the time being and stay home with my children. So that, in hindsight, had already started causing some anxiety because that wasn't my original plan. So I had some of that frustration, feeling like I had lost something I loved because I loved what I did and I was good at it and I knew what I was capable of. So that started the anxiety. But I also began after my first son to have separation anxiety. So I really struggled leaving him with anybody, especially strangers. I couldn't do that. The fear of not knowing what could happen to my son was too debilitating that it wasn't even worth it. So I would only leave him with like grandparents or like aunts and uncles. Like that's the only one that I would leave them with. And that like continued even the more children that I had. And that again contributed to that anxiety and depression because I felt like I could never be away from them. And if you're never away from your children, you never have a chance to like recoup. And so it was just kind of this like ugly cycle that fed in on itself. So it continued to get worse until the point with my daughter, I was to the point where I couldn't even like function anymore because of the anxiety. I didn't want to go anywhere, or if I went places, like it was super structured. I had to have all the things. We could only stay for a certain time. And like it just continued to escalate until I didn't even want to leave the house. But then I didn't want to be in the house because I didn't want to clean. I couldn't manage grocery shopping and cooking. Like all of it was overwhelming. I was just overwhelmed all the time. And in that state, when you try and talk to your spouse or significant other, you're not even able to articulate what you need. So that just compounds the problem. Like if all they see is that you're not doing anything, but you don't even know how to tell them why you're not doing what you're doing, it just led to fight after fight after fight. Like, well, why can't this get done? Like, I don't know. I just can't do it. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So that just continued to compound where it was truly miserable. But I didn't even know how to ask for help because I didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah.
I had no ability to like step back and self-reflect of what I was going through and what was happening to my family to even be able to ask for help. Like that's one of the biggest things that I like to talk to moms about now. It's like, it's okay to realize that you need help, and it's okay to start thinking through what you need, to step back.
So now, but it sounds like sometimes it's hard to even know what you need. What's one step that like a mom feeling that way that she can take?
I think you just need to start talking about it. Like, I feel like I would like hint at things like, oh, I feel overwhelmed, and like wait for someone to ask me more questions, and then nobody would, like, so I could like talk about it. I think when you're in that point of exhaustion, overwhelm, and stress, you have to be the one that takes the lead on having that conversation. And that could start with a best friend. It can start with a spouse. It can start with a parent if that's who you're comfortable talking with, but just saying, hey, these are what I'm feeling. This is what I'm experiencing. And I don't even know what to do. Because I never did that. I just kept wanting somebody to see the misery that I was in and just help me. But that wasn't realistic. Like it didn't happen that way because nobody knew.
And people aren't mind readers. Like they don't know if you just want space or, if like what it is you want, but we always think like clearly they can see I'm not happy, or
yes, exactly. And I agree. Like I thought, oh, people like know that I'm miserable. Like someone's gonna try and help me. And it never happened. And I don't say that in a negative way. Like no one ever helped me.
Right.
But it was never to the level that I needed. But I never asked for it either.
Yeah. So how do you find a safe place to talk about these sort of things? Because I know earlier you said like nobody's talking about it. Like it can be hard, I imagine, to find like, where's an okay place to start talking about this?
Yeah, I think that's why it's super important to maintain friendships or try and really work through it. It's a hard line when you're depressed and anxious to have a true conversation with your husband. But I've recently kind of heard the mantra, and I continue to keep it in my mind, that changes don't happen without tough conversations. So if you're not willing to have the tough conversation with a spouse, with a friend, with a whoever, you're not going to make any true change. So in those moments of finding that safe place is you need to find someone that you know loves you unconditionally and supports you and will just listen. And often, or hopefully, that can be found in a friend, who's someone, a mother, or um, another mother who's in a similar stage of life as you that understands, that can just listen,
Yeah.
or a sibling. Sometimes sisters or brothers are really good sounding boards because they know you and understand you and love you unconditionally and don't judge anything that's going to come out of you. And I would love to say a spouse, but I know from experience that sometimes when you get so far down, your spouse is the last person you really want to talk to, even though
Right.
it's probably the person you need to talk to the most.
Right.
Yeah.
How have these conversations helped you or changed your life?
Um, I mean, completely. Being able to take the time for self-reflection and understand who I am and what makes me who I am is been everything. I am a happy person now. I enjoy life. I laugh when my kids drive me crazy now because you know what? They're only little once, and like, yes, this exact moment is super stressful, but it's not forever. It's in this moment. So I just like I laugh and I take some breaths and then we go right back into it. But really understanding myself and really that inner work has been the key to changing my entire outlook on life and just focusing on that positive mindset, positive thinking, reframing the negativity of what's going around me and seeking the positive has turned my life completely upside down.
Yes. I mean, I think it's so hard to, or it's so easy to get stuck in the mind frame of like making everything so big, blowing everything up past right now, or thinking of the future and how it's going to be
Yeah.
the same as it is right now. And you just kind of go down a rabbit hole. But no, I think that's so helpful to just kind of be like, okay, this is in the moment and actually feel what you're feeling in the moment, like that's okay. But tomorrow could be different.
Yeah. A part of our mental health is our emotional intelligence. So, emotional intelligence is being able to understand what you're feeling, being able to understand what people are feeling around you in a judgment free zone, because you're allowed to feel however you feel. You
Yeah.
don't have to expect that you should feel one way or the other. Feel how you feel. Don't judge it, just feel it. But as a part of that emotional intelligence, you can't let those emotions stop you or block you from forward motion. The growth with your mental health and emotional intelligence is when you can take those emotions and use them to drive you forward or drive you to change. Okay, I'm depressed. I'm anxious. What do I need to do to change this? Do I need to go to counseling? Do I need to seek a doctor to help with medication? What do I need to do? So, using those emotions and knowing that you're in an unhealthy place and using them to move yourself forward is where you know that you're actually really starting to see growth as opposed to just that stagnant, miserable life, basically.
Yes. So important.
Yeah.
Um, Earlier you had talked a little bit about shame, and I know shame
Yes.
could just be like an ongoing cycle. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with shame and then how you were able to come out of it?
Yes. I love talking about shame. And this is why. Often as women, our when something bad happens, our first reaction is, I'm so stupid. I'm an idiot. I'm a bad mom. I can't believe I did that. And so that's shame. So we just heap shame upon ourselves like it's all our fault, that everything that's gone wrong in the entire world is all on us. That is not true. It's not true. You're not a terrible person. You're not a bad mother. Um, you're not any of those things that you're claiming. Okay. So shame has got to stop. There's no place in your life or your mentality, your mindset for shame. The difference that I want to point out is there's a difference between shame and guilt. So shame is I'm a bad person. Guilt is I've done a bad thing. Okay. So there's no room for growth or change when you shame. But guilt, I've done a bad thing, there's some room for change there. Okay. So I did this and this negative thing happened. What can I do differently that I can change this for next time. I yelled at my kids and I didn't like that I did that. Okay, well, why did I yell at my kids? Were they exhausted? Was I exhausted? Were they hungry? Did we run too hard today and we all were just to the point where we were done? Taking those moments and reflecting on those negative moments and trying to see where we can change and move forward or do differently to maybe avoid that situation from happening again is what the purpose of guilt and how, again, that growth mindset can help us move forward and use that guilt as a positive thing as opposed to shame, which only continues to bring that negative self-image and that negative self-voice.
Yes, I love that. And like anytime somebody gives me something specific that people can do, I love it. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
So that we don't just get stuck in our same,
Yeah.
our same shame cycle.
Yeah.
Or thought
And
process.
I would also encourage you that when you start thinking thoughts like that, stop yourself. Would you let your best friend say those things about herself? No, because you know those aren't true about her. So you have no place to say those things about yourself. They're not true about you either. So take a minute, step back when you're feeling those moments of shame and say, okay, would I let someone else speak to my best friend that way? Or would I let her speak about her that way? And we all know that answer is no. So stop doing it to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's it's crucial to be your own best friend, because if you're not going to be your own best friend, sometimes there's not somebody else that will, though.
Yeah.
But also, we don't have to believe all the lies that we think about ourselves.
No.
Every thought we think isn't true, but we often think that it is.
Yes, that's very true.
And
some of that is driven by our perspective and our internal voice that has been given to us by circumstances, by childhood, by things that people have spoken into us that we've allowed to stay there that aren't true. And that those become an internal voice that is an inaccurate internal voice. But it takes that deep inner work and self-reflection to realize that that's not an accurate inner voice.
Absolutely. So good. So, Sarah, let's end with a tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want.
Yes. So I also spent some time really reflecting, like, if I had one thing to say, what would I say to people? And it's kind of actually just exactly what we were talking about, is stop listening to that voice that tells you that you aren't enough, that you aren't worthy of good things, that you aren't worthy of happy relationships. That inner voice is full of lies. And it actually has a term. It's called imposter syndrome. That is basically where you don't consider yourself worth anything good. And that anything good that happened to happen to you is just because it just happened to happen. You're not actually worth it. So I would encourage women to stop thinking like that. Stop letting yourself have that negative inner voice. Take control of it. Take that thought, reframe it, and focus into positive. That is kind of the crux of where I would tell every woman to start.
So good.
In the arena and getting down and dirty.
Yes. Thank you. So will you tell us about your podcast and then how we can connect with you?
Absolutely. So I have my website is www.embracelivethrive.com. I have a podcast that is up, and it offers, so far it's kind of just talking through issues with mental health. We're going to follow the journey into motherhood with some different mothers. And I just have a whole big list of things that we're going to talk through that really are working through understanding depression and anxiety, how it can impact us, and how we can conquer it. Yep. Awesome. And there's also a blog component as well. And yeah.
Okay, cool. I will definitely add that information to the show notes. Thank you so much for being on the show. You've been a total badass, and I've enjoyed hearing your story.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And with that, we'll end our show. To all the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it. Thank you so much for tuning into that episode of the Ordinary to Badass podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Now, on Thursday, I'm going to be doing an episode, Why Sarah Meyer is So Badass, so make sure that you tune in for that. And then, the following Monday, you will be hearing from Carolyn Edge. Carolyn is a super badass. She teaches how to create art out of paper and magic, and she embraces the edgier side of life. So make sure you stay tuned for those episodes this coming Thursday, and then the following Monday will be Carolyn Edge. All right. Remember, join the Ordinary to Badass Facebook group today so that you can be surrounded by a community of badass women who are constantly seeking to improve their life and to grow our confidence and authenticity. Okay, truth, I don't know why I just said authenticity, because chances are, if you're a part of the Ordinary to Badass tribe, then you're already authentic. So drop that, join the Ordinary to Badass Facebook group so you can have a girl gang of your own, definitely a group of supportive women. All right, with that, I'll talk to you on Thursday.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.